Peace, love, and blessings, fam. Johnny Sally here with day 51 of Wisdom of the Ages by Wayne W. Dyer. Only 9 more days to go. I appreciate you for riding this out with me. Give yourself a round of applause, a pat on the back, whatever you have to. And if you want to catch up or you see any topics that interest you, you can catch it on TikTok or you can find it on YouTube at Loyalty Life, spelled Lyfe, Legacy LLC. Let's get into it. Day number 51, Suffering. From sayings of Paramahansa Yogananda, man has falsely identified himself with the pseudo-soul, or ego. When he transfers his sense of identity to his true being, the immortal soul, he discovers that all pain is unreal. He no longer can even imagine the state of suffering. Paramahansa Yogananda. Born to a devout, well-to-do Bengali family, Paramahansa Yogananda graduated from Calcutta University in 1915 and established the Self-Realization Fellowship in Los Angeles in 1920 to offer a science of spiritual exploration for self-harmony, leading to a more compassionate and peaceful world. His autobiography of a yogi introduced millions to India's age-old philosophy of yoga and its time-honored tradition of meditation. Paramahansa Yogananda's message of divine inspiration that it is possible to imagine suffering is impossible may seem impossible to you. I'm going to say that again. His message of divine inspiration that it is possible to imagine suffering is impossible may seem impossible to you. I have included this statement from a man I deeply admire precisely to encourage you to look at this business of suffering in a way that will very likely lead you to see your life from an entirely new perspective. You are invited to let go of some firmly entrenched ideas and the false identity Yogananda refers to. In the essence of your true being, what Yogananda calls the immortal soul, pain is real. We live in a world that is real, with problems that are definitely real. I think I messed up there. My brain's kind of all over the place, but again, this is a raw recording, so I'm going to go back to that. In the essence of your true being, what Yogananda calls the immortal soul, pain is unreal. We, though, live in a world that is real, with problems that are definitely real, and with elements of suffering that you know to be real. This advice to transfer our sense of identity and enter a space in which we can no longer imagine suffering probably seems impossible. An answer that works for me is to become as a spectator, wherein I lose attachment to the impermanent. That can get pretty heavy, because when you start to detach, it affects every area of your life. But I'll continue. A great teacher of mine, Nisargadatta Maharaj, put it this way: you do not suffer. Only the person you imagine yourself to be suffers. You cannot suffer. Once again, he refers to your true being as that which is quite distinct from your ego body. Overcoming your inclination to believe so strongly in your sufferings by becoming the spectator to your life is an awesome challenge. Let's take the most common kind of suffering, which is called pain. Suppose you are in some kind of pain, such as a severe headache, and you don't want to hear some Swami telling you that it isn't real or it is only in your imagination. But bear with me here for just a moment to see if you can let go of your attachment to that suffering. What if you could become a spectator to that ache in your head by actually transferring your sense of identity to what Yogananda calls your true being. By putting your attention on that ache, you could identify its precise location, describe its size, color, shape, and any and all characteristics of it that you perceive. If you concentrated long enough, you could actually move that pain from one point in your head to another. Once you have accomplished this movement, you have the new awareness that you can move it right out of your head as well. This means that the suffering was eliminated by your becoming the observer and detaching yourself completely from the painful experience. Some call this activity mind control, but I see it as a powerful means to stop identifying ourselves with what we have come to call suffering. Most of the suffering we experience outside of outright physical pain occurs because of our identification with our own self-importance. As I was planning how I would approach this topic of ego and suffering, I recall a conversation I had with my close friend Deepak Chopra. As I debated whether to include what he had told me in that conversation, the telephone rang, and sure enough, it was Deepak calling. I told him that only 10 seconds before I had jotted down his name on a piece of paper to remind myself about what he had said about ego and suffering, and I meant to call him to get it correctly. He chided me saying, "I got your message in the unified field, and so I called you." What he had told me was how a Buddhist teacher had been asked what one single thing could he always remember and use when he felt himself in a state of suffering. The teacher said, "Just remember this, and you will never suffer again. Nothing should be clung to as me or mine." Here are 9 words that I repeated often enough, particularly when you feel sorrow and therefore suffering, could eliminate that false identity with the ego. The ego is all about self-importance. We're going to say that 3 times. Nothing should be clung to as me or mine. Nothing should be clung to as me or mine. Nothing should be clung to as me or mine. Deepak and I talked for a few more moments, and he said, "As long as you are writing about the ability to end suffering, I suggest that you give your readers a phrase from the Ojibwa Native American tribes that I use on myself whenever I get too involved in my own self-importance by getting upset over some trivial matter." He said, "I simply repeat this phrase to myself, and almost by magic, the mental suffering disappears." So, here it is. From the Ojibwa via Deepak Chopra, through me, and to you. Now and then I go about pitying myself, and all the while my soul is being blown by great winds across the sky. I'm going to do that 3 more times. Just like the other one, yeah, that was deep. Now and then I go about pitying myself, and all the while my soul is being blown by great winds across the sky. Now and then I go about pitying myself, and all the while my soul is being blown by great winds across the sky. Now and then I go about pitying myself, and all the while my soul is being blown by great winds across the sky. It is a wonderful image to call into play when you feel that you are suffering and you become immersed in your own self-importance. As a spectator, you can observe your suffering, and from that vantage point, you can actually choose to love it and give yourself to it completely. You can treat it as a great gift that will help you to let go of that identity crisis with your pseudo-soul, and to put your inner attention and energy on that which is able to watch all that sorrow from a completely detached point of view. This is an extremely liberating approach to ending all suffering. When you live as Yogananda did, you can actually say, I can't even imagine the state of suffering. Somehow, I can hear Yogananda saying that you should learn to rejoice in suffering, for everything is done by the divine creator of all for one's own betterment. I'd like it to say your higher self. The pain is a messenger to remember, and your soul being blown across the sky, invisible though it may be, and then pain is not pain anymore, and suffering is not suffering anymore, and you will have removed your vulnerability to sorrow and suffering by no longer identifying with your body/mind. This is not some trick. It is a here and now means for looking at all your attachments, all your me and mine, all your self-importance, and re-identifying yourself with that which is eternal. Truly this works, and you do discover, as Yogananda promises, that all pain is unreal. To make this divine advice come to life for you, begin to 1. Make an honest assessment of what you feel is the source of your sorrow or suffering. Then begin a practice of repeating to yourself, the cause of any suffering is in me alone, and I am going to stop blaming anyone or anything for it. 2. Now, make an effort to notice everything you can about your actual state of suffering. If it is just a mental state of sorrow, note where it lives, where it shows up, and what its appearance is, and every characteristic you can identify. 3. When you find yourself in a state of self-pity, try repeating the words of the Ojibwe to yourself. You will soon see how trivial your self-suffering feelings are in comparison to your eternal soul that knows absolutely nothing of such feelings. 4. Ask yourself, as I always do, what is the lesson for me in this experience? Once I know that I have something to learn from this sorrow, as I have from all disappointments and sorrows in my life, I can turn that sorrow into a song almost instantaneously. Now, we're going to go through those and you can write them down if you want to. The first one, nothing should be clung to as me or mine. Now and then, I go about pitying myself, and all the while my soul is being blown by great winds across the sky. And the cause of any suffering is in me alone, and I am going to stop blaming anyone or anything for it. Now, we know suffering comes in many shapes, fashions, and forms, and it's not always easy to just cut out the pain that you may feel, whether it is actually physical or emotional. But it has been stated time and time that it's able to be done. I will say there might be a conflict of interest when it comes to dealing with other people, because even if you're in a calm state, even if you're not in pain, people can push your buttons to push you to certain levels or extremes of emotional discord and discontent. But that's where you either decide to stick around and try to assist the person in seeing what they are doing and how it is affecting you, or removing yourself. In either case, seems to be that all forms of pain and suffering are a choice, no different than the choice to come to this dimension and experience said things. Take the time in your free time to practice removing yourself and detaching yourself from things of impermanence. It's a you problem, not a me problem, not a us problem, not a we problem, can go a long way even in that regard. Because if you as your highest version of yourself is speaking, the immortal soul speaking to you now, that's a you problem, not a me problem, not a us problem, not a we problem. Because your higher self, your immortal soul, doesn't feel and experience things the way you do, which is a completely different level of unconditionality that we must strive for. I appreciate you for being here. Also, always, also and always, for yourself more than anything else, I ask that you walk in love, walk in light, walk in peace, and know that you are loved.